to Yin and Young, the podcast, episode 42. It's been a bit since Dan and I have caught up, so we're gonna catch up a little bit, and then today's main subject that we want to discuss is kind of the lessons we've learned from martial arts and how we've applied them to our life, and also, some of the literature that we've read along the way. And yeah, importantly, how we've taken those lessons and incorporated it into our own kind of worldview or belief system. I think that's something I'd be interested to hear from Dan and how he's done that, and I have my own journey as well. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Dan, how are you?
I'm doing okay. Always looking for a better opportunity job-wise, but nothing more new to that.
Okay, cool.
But
yeah,
I have enrolled my kids into a kung fu school. Even though I can teach them, I thought it was best to send them to a school with a bunch of other kids so that there's a social aspect to it.
I think that's, to be honest, that's so important. Like my mom. She could teach me Chinese, but she sent me to Chinese school. I didn't do so good at the time, but I remember trying, like, how she was helping me with homework, and like we were both getting frustrated.
Yeah,
it was not a good, because like, it's your mom. It's my mom, right? So it's like, with that, there's a lot of emotional attachment baggage stuff. Like, whereas if it's a teacher, it's a different dynamic, right?
Yeah.
It's like you're more, yeah.
Yeah, it's exactly that. And even my own Sifu, his dad is the Grandmaster, and I remember asking Grandmaster about that, and Grandmaster said he had someone else teach my Sifu first, and before, once he got the basics down, some forms down, and then he started taking over his lessons.
Oh, his dad started teaching his son.
Yeah. After a while, it's not immediate. It wasn't like Bloodsport where the guy's like teaching his son straight from the get-go in the backyard, torturing him a little bit.
Right. The basics, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I mean, what I'm curious about is, what's your criteria for like picking a school? Like, I'm sure you did your research before. Did you go on Yelp or?
No, I didn't do any of that. I was actually okay with any school because I just wanted them to get through the basics, and then it's just a repetition that I wanted them to get used to. Just the regular practicing, just doing kicks, over and over and over again, and seeing other kids doing the same thing over and over again. That's all I really wanted. I wasn't too worried about how well is the school going to teach them how to fight or do all those stuff, because at some point I would take over. So I wasn't very concerned about that.
Were you focused on what their first style would be?
No, I was more about cost and convenience more than anything else, because I wanted to find a school that it's kind of laid back.
Yeah.
Just for a little bit. And then the school is actually pretty well known kung fu school. They do Hung Gar and Chole Fut.
Okay. And
the classes I go to, they actually encourage the parents to join in. So I'm in there doing the same stuff they are, and so I can remember the forms. So when they have to practice their forms at night, I know all the steps.
Now, okay, so here's something we're gonna get into a little bit. Hard and soft styles. Hung Gar and Chole Fut, my understanding is they're considered hard styles.
Both hard external styles.
For our listeners, could you kind of briefly explain the division here, and then after you explain it, I'm gonna give a counterpoint from Bruce Lee, I guess. But yeah. Anyways, go ahead.
The hard and soft styles in Chinese martial arts are Taichi is the first one. They also include Xingyi, Bagua.
Oh, that's the soft style, you mean?
Yeah, those are the soft styles.
Yeah.
I believe Bagua is considered soft style as well, and then Qigong, obviously, and those are more about developing the internal qi and slowly progressing and developing the feeling energy when you fight, and internal styles tend to take a lot longer to get good at fighting with, whereas the hard styles are very fast and they emphasize speed at the very beginning and power rather than developing the movement slowly and taking their time and focusing on themselves first before they learn to attack others, I guess. And I'm not exactly sure if that's the right definition, but most of the external styles are the ones that we think about when when we see Northern Shaolin Kung Fu or Chole Fut or Hung Gar or any of the karate styles or Taekwondo. Those are more or less hard styles. But then hard styles always, once you get really really good, a lot of a lot of the styles have an internal form where they start going slower and trying to develop the the more the more meditative type of things. Chole Fut has a bunch of internal forms, and then Tai Chi goes. The Yang style Tai Chi goes from slow to fast. Chen style is already fast to begin with.
Yeah, they have some strikes and stomps in Chen style,
Right.
I noticed.
Yeah, right from the start.
Yeah. Yeah, I know for Bruce Lee, he personally said that this division is imaginary. It's actually kind of this division of hard and soft, and this style. Like at the end of the day, it's all fighting, or it's all like martial arts. I think the division, personally, I think the division is somewhat like with any classification. It's a little bit helpful, just
Yeah.
to give a concept. But at the end of the day, he's right. Like it's all human movement, right?
It is all human move, yeah.
And how it's expressed, hard, fast, soft. Essentially, like any movement can be expressed in a hard or soft way, relative to each other. Obviously, there's some breaks in Chinna and Tai Chi that are quite vicious, actually. So and they can be expressed quickly, but it's practiced, slowly. So visually, it looks very soft, but in practice, it could be quite, devastating. Yeah.
Well, I don't think that counterpoint, as far as like Bruce Lee's point of view is, it's actually true of all martial arts in the sense that, like I said, a lot of the hard styles start off really hard and fast so that you can use it right away, and then they progress into like more meditative styles and the slower stuff. And then Tai Chi, Yang style Tai Chi is especially known for being really soft and slow moving, but as you get better and more advanced in the movements, and you know how to use your body correctly and the breathing that goes with it, all the forms start getting really really fast. So you're starting from two opposite ends of the same spectrum. It's just Tai Chi takes a lot. All the soft styles tend to take a little longer before you can apply it to fighting styles. Usually, especially Tai Chi. I don't know about Bagua and maybe not even Xingyi's that way, but Tai Chi for sure. It takes a while before you can actually apply a lot of the movements, and a lot of people don't even care about that part.
Yeah, some of them are just Tai Chi in the park people who just want to use it for yang sung, which is to cultivate health, which is great.
Right.
Yeah,
It's just emphasis on like what you want to start with. Like I would never teach my kids Tai Chi. There's no way. It would just take too long, and they wouldn't have the patience for it. But if you always want to start, or at least for me, I would start the kids doing external styles, and once they get comfortable with that, and then once they get to like the teenage years, then you can start doing some softer stuff.
What's interesting about a lot of these masters, Yang, I think it's Yang Chen Fu, or like, Master Yang, the Yang style, Master Chen. A lot of these stylists, Aikido, which borrows a lot from Bagua. A lot of these masters started pretty hard styles, actually.
Yeah.
I can say for Sensei, the founder. I mean, that's his title, but the founder, I forget. Here, let me pull up his name. But the founder of Aikido, he started with strong external styles, and then eventually, like he found, developed by Morihei Yushiba.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Yeah, so like but you know, he found Bagua and he studied some other Chinese martial arts and Japanese martial arts, and then eventually developed the He Chi Dao, which is Aikido, which is considered a softer style. Um, as far as the three internal styles, I've learned a little bit of Bagua, and I'm probably the most proficient in Taichi. Uh, just from what I understand, Xingyi, it's like this is what like my Tai Chi teacher, my current Tai Chi teacher, is telling me is that I started doing he just does the 24 form, but he breaks down the principles pretty well, and the Yang style 24 simplified 24 form, and the way he's done some Xingyi and Bagua. And the way he explains it is like Xingyi is like a freight train. You go straight. It's like a line. Like you just take down the person. Like go straight down. Bagua is the circle, right?
Yes.
Bagua is you evade and then you twist and you can spin and attack from multiple directions. The footwork in Bagua is quite nice, very tricky. You can cut corners. There's like the kobu, which is like closed step and open step, and that helps change your body direction quickly. And they have the kind of the spear hand, which helps guide your attacks, and you can spear your hand in multiple directions, which help guide your body. Like snake creeps down is a common one where you creep down your leg with your hands, and then you can come up and come down quickly. And then there's Tai Chi, which is the rubber ball or the sphere, or like basically the balloon, I guess, is one way to the way it was described to me by another teacher was so it's the it kind of reminds me of Harry Potter, like the three the invisibility cloak, the wand, and what's the other one, the Philosopher's Stone. So Tai Chi, the three internal arts is the line, Xingyi, the circle, Bagua, and then what fills the circle, which becomes the rubber ball or the sphere, is Tai Chi. Basically, if someone pushes on you, you can compress and expand and repel the attack, right? So that's my understanding. And the order is like Xingyi's harder than Bagua. Bagua is a little bit harder, I guess, if you want to do it relatively, than Tai Chi in appearance, and then there's Tai Chi. These are great arts. I haven't, from what I've seen of Xingyi, it's quite, it looks a little similar to, like, they do a lot of stuff on the center line, which is similar to Wing Chun, Yong Chun, except they're much more like driving forward, like nothing will stop you. You will continually driving forward, and there's a lot of hands going up, so one hand going up, but the other hand's going down, so the blocking, attacking in the same movement. But anyways, external arts, taekwondo, karate. I started in Shotokan Karate, and what's interesting, like you mentioned, was like eventually, like, all those masters that have been doing karate or taekwondo for like many years, I mean, they can't be hitting so hard all the time, but like they get softer, I guess, relative to their younger selves, I guess. And there seems to be there is a higher level black belt kata in Shotokan, whereas you rotate your arms kind of like in a Tai Chi way, where I'm trying to remember the name of it, but you rotate your arms, and then it's kind of like you trap someone's arm, you cross their arms, and you can use it as a throw, but it's very Tai Chi in nature, the way it looks like. Anyways,
so it's just where you start from. It's basically all one spectrum. You just start from opposite ends.
Right. So you think for kids or people learning martial arts, your advice would be to start from the hard stuff, external stuff first, if you want to get self-protection. Yeah.
If you're like 5 years old or 6 years old, I mean, Tai Chi, they told me a long time ago, my teachers told me a long time ago that it takes about 10 years before you can actually apply Tai Chi to a fight situation.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, to be good enough to fight with it.
Right.
I mean, if your teacher knows how to fight with it is the other thing, right?
Right.
And then Choi Li Fut, that they said that it was made so that you could fight within 6 months.
Ah.
You learn all the basics, you do all the drills, day to day, and then within 6 months you should be go out there and you should be able to go out there and at least not embarrass yourself and not die right away.
Right. I mean, that's the same with they say that with like boxing, start with,
Yeah.
boxing. It's pretty easy. The only weapons you have are your hands. And you can learn what are the basic punches? What, like jab, cross, hook, uppercut.
Yeah.
And then, there's variations of those, but like that's basically it, You can do, I guess, hook to the body, hook to the head, jab, But yeah, you could probably that's what another practitioner told me is like, yeah, start with boxing, do that for like a year, and you have pretty much all the basics you need from boxing, and then you'll know how to fight more than most people.
Yeah.
And then from there, there's a lot of boxers I know who train with this guy, Master William Chen in New York, and they're basically trying to take their boxing to the next level, and that he's a teacher in Taichi. Yeah. So that's interesting. Yeah. I think one thing that I've been thinking about martial arts is also, why is it, first of all, it's kind of like, why are there so many expressions of body movement in all these different styles, right? And also, why is it that some styles seem to click with some people and others do not? Like, why are certain people attracted to stand-up styles or karate, and maybe not so much taekwondo, even though, there's similar principles? Or why are certain people want to do judo instead of like grappling art versus a striking art, And it's interesting because I think it gets to this deeper question of what connects with you. And this can go to like art, like why do some people gravitate towards writing or painting, versus science and math, engineering, or there's people who do both, whatever.
Right.
But there seems to be a certain people have certain inclinations, and it's kind of a mystery, Yeah, I don't know.
I think that's more true these days, but I think back in the old days, if you notice, like there was like always a predominant type of martial arts in China, at least, based on the region. And information didn't travel like it does now. I mean, everything travels so fast these days.
Right.
But if you're in the western parts of China, you're probably doing Tibetan white crane, and you're not going to have much exposure to the eastern styles or the northern or the southern styles or whatever, unless you travel there. And how many people can afford to just travel and go see all these other styles?
I mean, that's important. And then what's interesting is, so Chen Manqing, he's a very famous Tai Chi teacher. One of his students is, William Chen, I mentioned in
Right.
In New York.
New York.
Yeah. So basically, what's interesting is that Chen Manqing had multiple disciples, and they each have their own schools. There's William. There's, I think, Ben Lo, Huang Xingxian, Master Huang, like all these guys. These are notable students of Chen Manqing, and one of my guys I push with in the park, I do Taichi push hands. He says, well, guess what? Each of those guys had the same teacher, but they expressed the art so differently. Same input, same teacher, same input, but like completely different output. Right. I mean, the principles are principles. They, the Bai Hui, the hang from the, crown of the head is up towards heaven. Dantian is your center of mass, and so all of these, principles are the same, but how they express them and how they develop their own kind of forms and adapt them. It's interesting. Yeah, it's kind of like it's made me think. The martial arts in this sense has made me think of people, or even like politics, in a different way, because it seems like, wait, so who's right? Is there a right or a wrong?
Well, that's the art part, right? Art is like your interpretation of the thing that you learned.
Right.
And your perception of what works best or whatever it is. I know that in the old days, the teacher would actually adapt the forms or only teach certain forms to certain people with certain body types.
Ah, interesting. Okay.
If Chole Foot has a vast number of forms that I think very few, if any, people know, like all 160 forms. And there are certain forms that are like more suitable for people who are long-legged. Like there's a continuous, dual continuous kicking form, and those are, if you don't have the long legs, it's probably not going to look quite as good as someone who has those long legs.
Ah.
And if you're tall and lanky, I mean, are those tall and lanky people going to be able to do a monkey form as well as someone who's like smaller and more agile looking? Maybe. I mean,
I know.
if you
Yeah.
work at it.
Maybe they have their own expression of it, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of things used to be more adapted to the person's physical stature. If they're, and then I know that certain hand details or whatever, it might be adapted to whatever the person is. You know, whatever looks best for that person. Just like fighting styles are different. Even if you learn Hung Gar or Chole Foot, and if you have a tall person versus a small person, you're not going to fight the same way.
Right. No.
Certain people are going to have strengths in different ways. Just like boxers, right? Boxers all learn the same 4 strikes, but if you're like an outboxer, you kind of stay from the outside because you might have the reach. And if you're in boxer, like Mike Tyson, because you're shorter and stockier looking, you know, your arms don't have the reach. You have to come inside. They're going to apply their knowledge differently.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like you're giving these tools, right?
Yeah.
You're given these tools. It's the same tools. Let's use a language example. You have the same, ABC 26. You have the same letters to use, but guess what? From those letters, you can write Shakespeare, or you can write, trash, or like, yeah. I mean, that's a very empirical thing. Obviously, martial arts is maybe a specific style has a little bit more restrictions than just the alphabet of a language, but the interpretations, it's vast and it's innumerable. It's kind of like so one thing from the Book of Five Rings he says is like from one comes 10,000. It's like a quote, and the way I interpret it is that basically the way he contextualizes it is constantly, ceaselessly practicing, right? And this is written by Miyamoto Musashi, considered the greatest samurai of all time, and who lived, and it's rare, but he lived to an old age. Most like a lot of samurais that were dueling or active, died young during that time. But he was able to be undefeated, because if you were defeated, you were dead, most likely, or maimed, I guess. And he contextualized that by like, yes, from whatever art you do, be it martial arts, swordsmanship, from that, this is the way I interpret it. The rigor and the discipline you have learned from that can be applied to 10,000 things, or can be expanded to a numerous number of things. And another thing he mentions was become acquainted with every art, right? And and that's because he was also a great, a painter, a poet. He practiced also calligraphy, and yeah, that's something I found quite interesting. It's like because all these different arts, they inform each other in a way,
Yeah.
So that's
There are
something. Go ahead.
There are lots of great quotes from that book that you can use when you're teaching kids and teaching students. The one that I always tell my students, like, you can only fight the way you practice, and that's in the Book of Five Rings. Because if you practice like crap, your fighting is not going to be like so much better once the situation really arises. So.
Right. I think I've said this before. Like, there's that example of a gun instructor, a bad one, who basically said, "Hey, pick up the shells after you shoot. After you shoot your gun, right?"
Yeah.
And then what happened was that his students were in a confrontation. I think he was teaching soldiers, so like, and what ended up happening is these students were killed, and what they found in their hands was, the empty gun shells, right?
Oh man.
Yeah, yeah. This, I don't know if this is just a how true of a story this is. It might just be a anecdote to like prove a point, but that's from what I understand. I think I got this quote from Tim Ferriss, I believe, and so that's tough, man. What, like, as that instructor should probably be banned then. So yeah, you practice the way you fight. Yeah, like if you're in a firefight, you don't really have time to go clean up after yourself.
No.
Like, no, you gotta get shit. Like, okay, here's a personal example. I got in a fight in high school once,
Right.
and it's funny. I didn't train like this. This was more of my own mental block, I thought. But so I was in confrontation. We're exchanging some heated words. I was getting heated words with this one guy who had been like kind of insulting me, talking shit about me, and I confronted him and I spit on the ground, and some of the spit got on him, and he spit on my chest. So I
Right.
backfisted him in the face, which is a common attack. Yoriuchi, I think. But anyways, back fist to his face, and then I turned around and took my glasses off because I didn't want my glasses to get broken, and I turned back to fight him, and he punched me in the eye
Oh.
because I had turned my back to him, And Bruce
Right.
Lee obviously says, "Don't ever turn your back to the opponent." Well, guess what? I didn't know. I was just being dumb. And he punched me in the eye. I slipped in the mud, and he started raining punches on me. I at least had the forethought to cover up, so the punches didn't really hurt me. And then when
Right.
when I stood back up, I guess some of the police had, when the police have come, and not the police, but like the on campus the high
Security.
school security, and they were there. So he peeled off, but I was still ready to fight. But that's my kind of that sucks, because then I think people from high school kind of still remember that, and they're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
James, you're the guy that got punched in the eye." And from what I understand, he had trained a little bit of boxing, and at that time I was learning Shotokan Karate, and my sensei, one of my teachers, Shiham, at the time, he called me to the office because I guess another student who went to my high school had heard about it, and he's like, "Hey, what happened?" And I was like, I was pretty distraught about it, because like, damn it, like, I'm supposed to be, I think I was a first degree black belt already by that time. It was pretty embarrassing to lose like that, and
Yeah.
and he's like, I told him what happened, and so one of the tenets, the dojo kun, one of the precepts is refrain from violent behavior, right? So I personally failed in that, but when I told him like he spit on me, he's like, well, you gotta stand up for yourself.
Yeah.
He's like this older Japanese gentleman, great guy, Ken Funakoshi, and a great. He's older, and much. I think he's in his. I want to say, he's up there in years now, but yeah, he told me that. And I was just like, I was like, yeah, yeah. And I was beating myself up about it. I didn't get over that loss for a little while, but if anything, what I took away from that fight was presence. You can't fuck around. If there's an impending danger in front of you, all my focus should have been there. Who gives a shit if
Yeah.
I'm wearing glasses or not, or anything. All my focus is on the impending danger and diffusing it, stepping, as quickly as possible, wherever that means, either stepping away or striking the person to end it quickly.
Right.
And that was a lesson I learned, and also, which was good, because I think I'm trying to remember the sequence of events. It's been like 20 years now, but there was another fight I had in high school where yeah, it was uh, some. It was like at Golfland, freaking Golfland. You know what Golfland is or no?
A miniature golf
Yeah,
place.
miniature golf place, and there was one guy who's like, I had knew I've seen him at school, and oh yeah, I think I fought him before. I think I fought him beforehand, which led to the other fight. But anyways, in that fight I won. But I remember why I won, because I he had pushed up on me, like shoved me really hard, and I was like, oh, I'm not gonna. And I was like, oh, okay, and then I just did like a couple straight punches to his face, and basically he's like, oh shit, I can't fuck with this kid,
Yeah.
because he was like shoving, like they're basically like punches, like shoving me super hard. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna I'm gonna kick your ass, if you keep doing that.
Yeah.
This is something. Okay, so this kind of segues to another point that I've been thinking about recently. I'm interested to get your thoughts, like Asians getting picked on. I don't know. I grew up in a predominantly, Asian area,
Right.
but there and there are a few times where someone like told me to go back to China when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think. Oh yeah, Samoans picked on me before, because they're bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think also in greater society now, and you still see this today. Basically, like I don't know if I'm crazy in saying this. Sorry, but I'm thinking, do Asians get picked on more than other races, like physically? Like
Probably.
what was your experience? Like, have you ever?
I got picked on, but the thing is, I think I got picked on most by other Asians when I was in 8th grade.
Yeah. That's happened to me, of course. Yeah, the two people I mentioned to you, they were, either Pacific Islander or Asian, or Southeast Asian. Yeah.
Yeah, I've only actually gotten into one altercation in school, and that was with another Japanese kid.
Yeah.
And he was just like giving me nonstop shit for just a variety of reasons in 8th grade in PE. I only had this kid in PE class. And then one day I just got tired of it. He was like in the locker room just talking shit, and I just started, I punched him a couple times, and then I tagged him on the face. And he punched me back, but on the shoulder, but I just tagged him on the face a couple times, and then the next day he didn't talk to me and he moved away. He moved his locker.
Yeah.
And that was before I even knew how to fight, so.
Yeah. Oh, that was before Choi Foot.
Yeah, after learning Choi Foot, I've only come close a couple times, but nothing ever came of it. One time was at a house party in college.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was talking to a student. I mean, she was a student at my college, but she was also a student at Kung Fu school. And we were just talking outside, and this guy came up and was like, "Hey, you want to dance to the student, right?" And I was like, what am I gonna say? I'm not gonna say anything, because I don't really. You're not allowed to fraternize with the students really from your own school.
Yeah.
Own Kung Fu school.
Yeah.
And then when he got turned away and walked away, I was like, "Hey, did you want to dance with me?" She goes, "Oh no, it's okay." And the guy turned around, like, "What'd you say? What'd you say?" I was like, "Oh, this is like a prime opportunity to try my Kung Fu," because I was still young. I was like, "Oh, but
don't do it."
Yeah, there's a student here, and we were like practicing to not say or try to fight or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, "Oh yeah, nothing, man, nothing." He goes, "Yeah, I thought so." I was like, and he walked away. I was like, "Oh." It was like so. It's like such a huge blow to the ego, but at the same time, do you really want to get into a fight? And then plus the guy, I thought he was like friends with the guy who was throwing the house party, and I knew the guy who was throwing it. I was like, "Oh man, I don't want to beat up the who's also another Kung Fu student." I was like, "Oh, I don't want to beat him up."
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh."
But you were itching really for it though. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You were itching for it, I can tell.
And I just think about it all the time. I was like, "Oh." So who knows? He might have been really good though.
Yeah, that's true. You never know. And the danger of fighting is like with our with our interview with Robert J. Arnold. There's, however slim, there is always a possibility of someone getting seriously hurt or worse, death.
Yeah.
Like, because you hit someone, they fall back and they hit their head on a brick wall or the edge of a wall or of something.
Yeah.
Like, there's always that chance, you know.
Yeah.
So that's why, in Shotokan, they say like refrain from violent behavior. Genshin Funakoshi, in his book Karate
Yeah.
Do, he shares how like how one of his teachers were like, there was this like gang of Japanese, this is in Japan, so there's a gang of people that were like they're looking for trouble, and they had heard they were looking for trouble, so they took so after they finished practice, Genshin Funakoshi and his teacher, they took the long way home because they knew that gang would be loitering the specific street, trying to challenge them, right? And
Yeah.
and so they took the long way, and then they heard something, so they hid I think in the bushes or something, and they waited until the group passed. And like it's kind of similar. It's like Funakoshi was like, wait, why don't we just like take them on, but
Yeah.
his teacher's like, we would kill them. Like, we would like totally destroy them, or like there's no honor in that, right? Because
Yeah.
they're untrained hooligans. Like, what's the point of like taking out, unless they were like a threat to the society at large. But I think they were just trying to challenge the karate students or something. So like,
Right.
um, there is something to be said about like going back to standing up for yourself. Like, hey, like, basically, if you don't stand up to this bully's not only going to bully you again, but another person, or if it's racially motivated, they'll bully another Asian again,
Right.
And that's something I'm aware of. That's something I think about, like just the other day I was at the Starbucks, and he's like, he looked like a homeless guy. He had a huge backpack on, and he smelled. So basically, I went to the bathroom, I checked to see if it was locked. It was locked, and I stepped away. I was waiting, and then this guy with this huge backpack comes out and says, hey, you just trying to open this, man? I'm like, well, I saw that was locked, so yeah, I was just trying to use the restroom. I didn't know you were in there, so I'm just waiting. He's like, dude, I can sense you, I can sense you there, like, the hell. And he goes back to the bathroom, and then he comes out a little bit later. He's like, and he's like, man, fuck it, or like he says something under his breath. I didn't hear it, and I go into the restroom, and you know what he does? He knocks on the door and shakes the door while I'm in the bathroom. Yeah. I don't pay any mind. Oh, well, first of all, I got super fucking angry. I was about to like push the door open and like kick him, but I calmed down, and I started thinking about basically compassion. Like, there's probably a reason why he's this way.
Yeah.
He is probably, I don't think his parents were probably nice to him, if he has parents. He seems like he's economically distraught, and this is a way that he has engaged with the world. So I took my time. I didn't feel rushed. I didn't rush myself. I just did my thing, even though he's knocking on the door or whatever. And then I step out, and he looks at me. I look at, and I don't look at him. I just walk away.
Yeah.
I completed what I wanted to do. Go to the bathroom.
Right.
And all he can do is shake the door, but that doesn't really affect, that's annoying, but it's not really. And as I was walking away, I was thinking to myself, should I have said something? Should I fucked with him a little bit more? Like, maybe I should have opened the door and said, hey, did you need something? And then close the door again or something like that. I don't know. Now that I think about it, I do think that I should have maybe expressed in some way that this was not behavior he should engage with other people, um, at the same time, I don't know. I didn't want to escalate the situation because like
Right.
I don't know. He could have had a knife or something or whatever, and I don't know. I mean, what are your thoughts on those kind of encounters? I guess.
Yeah, as long as you can do your thing, take care of that. That's the priority, right? If you have to use the restroom, you got to go use the restroom and not worry about other people. And once that's done, you can say something, but I mean, what's the reality of the situation? Are you going to see this guy again? Is it going to really help anything?
I mean, I don't want him to do it to another person. Like yeah, that's for
Right.
sure. Yeah.
But if he's like mentally unstable, which he sounds like he is,
Yeah.
is that really going to make a difference if you actually do anything?
Probably not. Yeah, probably not. So, yeah, it's tough. Like,
Because I talked to a friend recently, and then he said he was like wandering around the park with his ex-girlfriend, and this two guys like came up to him and like was blocking his way, and they were high and stuff.
yeah,
And he was trying to talk himself out of it, and his girlfriend at the time was like, "Hey, no, let's just go." And then the guy started escalating and started blocking him more, and then so these guys are high. They're obviously looking to get into a fight. Later on, he learns that those guys were getting their asses kicked by some other people because they were just looking for trouble.
yeah.
But once they come off their high, are they going to remember everything? I don't know. And then once they get high again, are they going to do the same thing? Probably. Are they really going to learn? I don't know. I don't think so.
And the other question is it our job to teach them? Is it our job to like put ourselves in danger to like teach them a lesson or whatever? I think there's certain responsibility as martial artists to like diffuse these situations. Like I'll tell you one thing. Now that I've gotten better at martial arts, and this is something maybe you can attest to, it's like that need to prove like, oh, I could totally take this guy, like,
yeah,
like what's the point, like, because like it's just like what is the honor in like defeating someone who has no training, and if they do have or if they do have training, like I guess it's like, okay, here's a question for you. When should you use martial arts? Like the act of kicking, punching, grappling, whatever. When should you use martial arts?
Well, definitely when you get attacked, right? When you could totally tell that there's no way to defuse the situation, and especially if you're protecting someone else.
Yeah.
Like if I'm out with my family, with my kids, and some guy's obviously acting crazy, I gotta like make sure my kids are okay. And as soon as they make a threatening gesture towards my kids, then obviously something's gonna go down. But if they're just like yapping away, and I'm a very bad talker. I don't talk back really well. I once told some friends of mine, I was like, I mean, I leave the talking to my wife. My wife's really good at talking to, and she's very good at arguing. She should have been a lawyer. And then I go, I don't talk. I just rumble. If it happens, it happens. But obviously, you don't want to do that because they could always land a lucky punch, or you might not be as good as you think you are, or the other people, they might have some training. So, and then to answer your question again, just like everyone tells you, it's self-defense.
Yeah, self-defense.
It's way more challenging to go and spar with people who know how to fight, and that's where the fun is, right? The challenge of it all. And if you know that you can like get good licks in with someone who has training, they're ready for it, then obviously someone who's not prepared for a fight, like physical interactions with kicks and punches and whatnot, they're not going to have as much of a chance as someone who's already prepared and ready for whatever you're going to throw at them.
Right. Yeah. I think about some stuff in the news lately has been about violence happening, right?
Yeah.
Either it be mass shootings. there's one female international student. She was killed in 2017 quite brutally by this a graduate physics student, and so but like basically he got her in the car, like I guess
Yeah.
say, hey, do you need a ride, like I'm an undercover cop or some shit like that, and she's like an international student, and maybe she wasn't privy to like, you know, I don't know how America works. She had only been in America for like a few months, like 3 months or something. And it's pretty gruesome, like what he did to her. Like they still can't find the body.
Right.
And her name's Zhang Yingying. It's a big news story, especially in China. It didn't get too much press. It got a little bit of press here, but it was bigger. I don't think they want to publicize it too much because it's gonna scare away, you know, international students. You know, that's
Yeah.
which is like they should publicize this kind of stuff because international students, especially female international students, they have to be aware of like, dude, can be fucking dangerous. Like, let's be real. Like,
Well,
yeah.
especially now. I mean, who was it? Amnesty International or UNICEF? Well, I think it's Amnesty International. They released a travel warning to come to the U.S.
Yes,
these days.
I heard about that. Yeah.
But going back to your point, I mean, do Asians get picked on more? I don't know. It goes back to the whole Asian men being emasculated, right? Or not viewed as very masculine.
Right. Yeah. Which is kind of like why, like, I know we've talked about this, but like that's part of the reason why martial arts is so attractive, particularly to Asian men. Like, one, it's from our culture and it's effective, and also in a way it's like it boosts our masculinity. You know, I don't know if that's like, maybe that's an unconscious reason, but like, or some people it's conscious reason. You know. Yeah. I mean, for you, it seems like it was just something you took to or you really enjoyed. Yeah.
Well, I used to watch those kung fu movies all the time. All the old Jackie Chan movies, all those, you know, black belt theaters or on weekends. I enjoyed those things, and I was like, oh, I want to learn how to do some of these things too, because back then there weren't that many superhero TV shows other than Power Rangers. This is even predated to Power Rangers. So what else? Those guys were doing like superhero heroic things, right? I saw a movie where the guys were like practicing kung fu on spears. I was like, oh, that guy's awesome. They jumped really high or something crazy. And so they were kind of like superheroes, and I was like, oh, is this possible? And that's what I wanted to learn. I was like, I want to learn how to do like superheroic things.
Yeah. Can you do superhero things now, or?
No, I can't. There's no way I'm going to be fighting on spears or jumping like 10 feet in the air.
But you could do finger push-ups though, yeah.
Not anymore. I'm like out of practice.
But if you punch someone, it's gonna hurt a lot more than it did before, right?
Yeah, it's gonna be directed and, you know, targeted strikes, all those things. When I was doing punches today, it was kind of embarrassing. I was like missing the guy's hand. I was like, oh crap. And then like the second set of punches, like, okay, I can hit them.
Yeah.
But then I was like, then the ego kicks in because it's been so long since I've actually hit something. Then you're just like all strength and rather than like the relaxed power. I was like, oh crap, I'm not like doing this correctly. I'm being a very bad model to my kid.
Nah, you just gotta dust the dust off. That's yeah. Have you heard about the USC students? Like, there's a Chinese student that was beaten to death.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, probably.
Yeah, I was just looking up some stuff about it just right now, but like I had heard about it like through other people, but yeah, there was a USC student from China. And let me see. So here's like, okay. Albert Okoa is the fourth person convicted this is from the LA Times, convicted in the 2014 attack on the 24-year-old engineering student Shin Renji. Okoa and 3 others attacked Ji while trying to rob him as he was walking home from a study group near the USC campus on June 24th, 2014. G was beaten with a wrench and a baseball bat. After the attack, G staggered to his off-campus apartment and was later found dead. Yeah.
Well, see, in that case, I mean, that's not just like picking on Asians because they're like emasculated or whatever. That's just they were just looking for an easy target. You don't like use a wrench and a bat for someone that you think you could beat easily with your hands.
Yeah, but like the other thing is something I was watching this TED talk about martial arts earlier, and he made a good point. He's all about women empowerment, and he made this example of like if a man, a sexual assaulter, wants to assault a female, when he's looking for a target, he's looking for a girl who's maybe not really paying attention, is on her phone, and basically he wants to surprise her. Basically, you're looking for vulnerable victims, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And let's be honest, international students,
Yeah,
are
they're not really well self-aware or aware of their surroundings.
right, and they don't know and also if something happens to them, if a girl gets raped and survives, what are the systems to protect her? Like, who's she going to reach out to? The police? And like, how she do that? Or to her counselor? Like, and there's a language barrier, like,
Yeah.
it's just more difficult, like when I remember living in Taiwan, which is super safe, but if something happens, I would call my aunt,
Yeah.
because I was lucky because I have family in Taiwan. Like, if I didn't have that support structure, like, oh yeah, what happened? Oh, I was in Australia once, so luckily I speak, they just speak English there. But my girlfriend got robbed, right? And
Yeah.
it wasn't like an altercation. They had somehow sneaked by, snatched her purse, and so like what did I do? So I went to the front desk, and they spent time trying to get the tape, and then I went to the police. But like, it would have been 10 times harder for my girlfriend, at the time, who was Taiwanese, to do any of that. I was basically taking care of it for her, like being the communication with because of the language, it's more, and also like, this one time I got cheated out of a payment from working this job in Australia, and I had to go online, research the ombudsman, like, basically, I could send an application to the ombudsman in Australia so that they can send a letter to the company that did not give me money. Like they would do like a letter of protest or something, and then it might go to court or some shit. Dude, like, no international student wants to deal with that shit, man. like
Yeah.
and or understands those systems, so yeah, and I think, like you said, like Asians, we're always seen, there's this sense of otherness, like we're others, and also the men are not as strong, and who knows? I don't know what their motivations were.
Right.
The people that killed G. I mean, but yeah. I mean, another counterpoint, and this is another stereotype, is I had a black classmate in high school say like, yeah, I don't want to mess with Asian dudes because I think they know kung fu. And that's like, I don't know. But at the same time, I do think some Asian people are targeted because also everyone thinks Chinese people are rich,
Right.
And a lot of these international students, let's be real, come from family, because that's the reason why they can be sent to
Right.
international school. However, in the case of Zhang Yingying, it's such a terrible, like, she came from a working class family. She got a scholarship. She was engaged. It's just really, it's really terrible. And one thing I heard from another podcast about yellow fever,
Yeah.
is that if you want to take yellow fever like to its ugliest degree, so what we see usually is like, oh, these guys totally love Asian chicks and they love like anime and stuff like that. But if you want to take it to the ugliest degree, it's basically saying, I don't see this person as a human. They're just there's a sexual object. that I want to fuck and then kill. Like,
right.
I'm sorry, but like that's the taking yellow fever to its ugliest core. I mean, would you agree?
Well, I mean, that's just the whole thing about objectifying. You don't see the person as a person; you just see them as an object.
And this is really personal to me in the sense that I have a newborn niece, and if I'm going to be involved in her life in any way, she's got to learn how to protect herself, man. Like,
Yeah.
this is okay. It's tough. This gets me a little emotional. It's like sometimes I'll be on dates, right? Or when here's a better example. Like if I'm trying to like approach a woman that looks attractive or interesting, this has happened where it's like, you know, this sense of what the fuck is this guy doing? Is he going to try to kill me, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not trying to come off that way, but like some women are they've trained themselves to be that, because I don't know, maybe they've been attacked before or whatever their story is. And I remember this, like my friend's sister, she grew up the same town as me, and she's like, you know, I'm pretty, you know, optimistic and stuff. And I met her years later, like after she had been to like LA and tried to do like the acting thing here, and her personality had become so jaded, like the world is not all bright and happy.
Right.
She didn't say it, but that's the feeling I got from her, from the way she spoke, talking about like, some of, you know, her experiences. And like, I don't know, I don't think it's mutually exclusive, but basically it would be great in a world where like people can still maintain that kind of childlike innocence and happiness, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, we also live in a world where you can be pulled into a car, raped, and decapitated, or stabbed to death and beat to death. That's also part of this world. So
Yeah.
so what do you I mean, the probability of that is low, but it's not zero. It's definitely not zero, you know?
Yeah.
So what do you teach, you know, I mean, like, what, I don't know. I don't know what my brother's going to do to teach his daughter, but like, the obvious thing is, and something that my parents taught me, is that this world is cruel. My dad and my mom told me, more so my dad, but my dad told me, like, James, at a very young age, he told me, like, James, this is a cruel world. You have to look out for yourself. You can't trust anyone. And, you know, yeah. And he told me, like, the lion stands alone, you know?
Uh-huh.
Which is, I don't think that's completely biologically true. I think they actually, they're in packs and stuff like that. But, it's kind of like it. I was a pretty happy kid. My grandparents helped raise me as well, and yeah, I was really happy-go-lucky. But and I, as a high schooler, or a middle school, I used to like help my other a friend, and I would go around to neighbors and knock on their doors and say, hey, we'll wash your car for like $5-10 or whatever. And I remember my dad pulled me aside because we were helping this old guy, and he liked our services, so he kept calling us, or we kept going back to him. And my dad pulled me aside, and he said, James, is that old man touching you at all? And I was like, wait, what do you mean by touching? Like, he's like, is he trying to? I was like in middle school, and he's like, did you touch your private area?
Yeah.
I was like, what the hell is my dad talking? Like, no, of course not. Like, that's weird. You know, and by that time, I'm you know, I'm not like a kid, but I have some understanding of sexuality, but like, not to the point of like when I was in high school, but like, and I get where my dad's coming from, you know, like,
Yeah.
this is a world where kids get molested, and like, but it made me like kind of paranoid. It hurt a little bit of my worldview a little bit, and that's part of the reason why he took us and we started in karate, you know.
Yeah.
And to wrap this up, yeah, well, my first sensei who passed away, rest in peace, Sensei Leonard Lafferty. He was my first sensei, and super, and basically, I don't know. It was as if my dad and him had spoken to each other or something. Cause like, this guy was super strict, you know, and he taught us that yes, this world's not fair. Like he would hit us with a shinai, like not across the
Right.
face or anything, but he'd hit us like if our stances were not low enough, he'd hit our thighs, okay, and say
Right.
get lower, you know, get that horse stance lower. He would walk on our stomachs, and I'm like, at this age I'm like what 10 or something, you know, like he'd walk on our stomachs and stuff like that. And this is like a 40-year-old man, you know.
Yeah.
And one time we were doing a kihon, which is like the punching sequences or kicking sequences, and I'm like I'm beat, right, and I have my hands on my knees, I'm hunched over, and he looks at me like, James, are you taking a shit? Stand up straight. And I'm like, oh fuck, so I stand up straight. And I didn't know this, but my brother and sister took karate with me at the time, and and he he would be in the back smoking sometimes between classes,
Uh-huh.
and he'd tell my sister, hey Cindy, here's a few dollars, go to Taco Bell, there's like Taco Bell nearby, go get me a Diet Coke, you know. And then he's like, oh, so don't smoke, smoking's terrible for you, and then he'd like take a puff of his cigarette. Lovely. But he worked in law enforcement, and later when I saw him later I think when I went back to karate in high school, I took a break from elementary and like some middle school or something, and then oh shoot, I did the car washing thing like in elementary. But anyways, so middle school, took a break, went back in high school because I felt that urge to go back. But Sensei Lafferty, I think he instilled in me like, yeah, there's some people in the world that he was not nice to us. He's not our friend. He's there to discipline us and make us stronger. And also there's this looking back, I love the guy. It wasn't like spiteful, you know. There was a sense of like the intention behind it, even though it's not spoken. Even as kids, you can understand that he's trying to make us better, you know.
Right.
And also that, guess what? There's people out there. Why are we punching and kicking? Because there's people that will kill you if you don't defend yourself.
Right.
You know? He told me like when as a police officer, like you have to, like one thing he learned from karate is like whenever you approach a car, he'd stop cars all, you know. Whenever that might be the time you might die. So you have to approach with full presence and full awareness. And you have to have your hand. You don't get too close to the car because that guy could grab you and stab you in the neck. You know.
Right.
And I'm curious to get your thoughts on it because like you're raising kids and like those are two extreme worldviews. This world is cruel. This world is happy. Guess what? They both exist in this world. This beautiful world is beautiful, but at the same time, we also live in a world where terrible, horrendous things happen. So, like, what worldview do you share with your kids? Because from my understanding, the safest thing is kind of like the argument of like heaven or hell, right? Like, oh, if there's a heaven, might as well like, you know, live a good life so you can get there, even if it doesn't exist, right? It's similar in the way that this world is bad, you can die, get murdered, so you might as well teach that because at least your kids will be aware and cognizant of it. But the downside of that is that, guess what? This world is cruel, unsafe, and all that happy-go-lucky stuff. Guess what? There's a very dark side to it, to this world as well. I don't know. Anyways, any thoughts or you know?
I haven't approached those things yet. Like I'm just teaching like really basic things right now as far as like safety is concerned, but I mean the day will come when I have to talk to them about it, or both my kids, and make sure that they're not doing anything stupid to put themselves in a bad situation.
To be honest, I mean, why not talk about it now? Because there are
They're
child
6 and
molesters
4.
out there. Yeah,
They are. But the thing is, you have to understand their comprehension level is not there yet.
Yeah.
They can understand these people are going to do bad things to them. Like, we tell them, as well as the doctors tell them, that their private parts are their private parts, and the doctors can only see their private parts with a parent in the room.
Okay, good.
So those things are already happening. But, like, do you actually go into more detail about what those bad things are?
Nah, yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
It's inappropriate right now. I mean, you just got to tell them they have to be sure that no one else is seeing their private parts.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's yeah, and like these things, why are there bad people in the world, or why are there people that do these things, right? And I think a lot of it comes from they were, some of them are psychopaths. They were born psychopaths, so they're like, my understanding is psychopaths are people with certain a genetic deficiency, that they have no capability of empathy, so that they seek out thrill through the destruction of others.
Right.
And so those people can be trained in sort of like positive reinforcement, where like, oh, instead of trying to kill someone, if you're nice to them, I'll give you like this piece of chocolate or something like that. Like trying to teach positive reinforcement. So their tendencies could be diminished, but there's still that ability for empathy. I don't think it can ever be regained unless they have some sort of chemical way to do that. And then the majority of others that destroy and hurt other people's lives, they're acting out of like their own traumas, their own. Because let's be real. I train in jiu-jitsu now, right? And it's been quite surprising that just in the span of last week, I've met 2 practitioners that have been to prison. I didn't know that. I didn't know they went to prison. Actually, 3 of them I now that I've trained with, I didn't know that, but I guess they've been to prison. Now, some of them were Black and Hispanic. So there might be a racial, socioeconomic reason to that, but what I find interesting about martial arts, one of my friends I met recently, I hadn't seen in like 20 years. He used to train Shotokan with me. He's a Black gentleman. He was at his lowest point, one of his lowest points in his life, and if it wasn't for Sensei Lafferty, like him finding that dojo or karate, who knows what he would have done either to himself or to others,
Right.
And that's, I think, if anything, if there's any takeaway from this podcast, is that there's such, if you have the right intent and the right teachers, martial arts, it can fucking save you. Like, I know for me, whenever I get super down or depressed, I can always do the forms, or I can always do martial arts to make myself, even if it's infinitesimally better, at least I'm a little bit better than that dark point where I was just at.
Right.
Yeah. And there's a certain confidence or this certain thing where, like, if I step in a room or in a situation, I have some training to handle it. It's maybe not all. I'm never going to be 100% ready for any sort of altercation, but at least martial arts has helped me be better in whatever situation. Yeah. Any thoughts on that, Dan? Or
I mean, martial arts can be applied in so many different ways, but the primary reason I'm sending my kids to Kung Fu school is to make them, like I said before, is to figure out hardship. Not hardship, but like working hard, learning to work hard. And the school that I'm sending them to, clicks off all those points. They're pretty good. It's a bonus point for me that they're doing Hung Gar and Choli Fut.
Yeah.
Especially Choli Fut, something I already know.
Yeah.
So, different lineage, but yeah. In any case,
Yeah.
Martial arts are good.
Yeah. And a lot of these guys that come out of prison or something, like, it's a way to work out. A lot of these people were not born this way. They were not born to go to prison. No one wants to go to prison, you know.
Yeah.
But whatever the circumstances, their parents or whatever, they were sent there. Are they still responsible for their actions? Yes, people are still responsible for their actions. People are still accountable, but there should also be a point of rehabilitation and compassion. And I think if history has shown, martial arts has always been has a huge positive impact, because it's a very productive way to get out that anger. A lot of these men, a lot of these women,
Yes.
are super angry, that do these terrible things or do things that get them into prison. And martial arts is a very productive way to physically manifest this tension, this internal tension, you know, and in a way that's, you know, hopefully non-violent. Like, you know, when you spar, I don't know what you do, but like when I try to spar, I'm not trying to kill the person. I'm trying to like get better with the technique, and like, oh, I landed that shot, but I'm not going full power. That's another whole subject of like training, sparring full power. But basically, yeah, you're trying to spar in a way that you can still train with that person tomorrow, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because a lot of white belts,
timing.
Yeah.
It's about
Yeah.
timing, learning the timing and the approaches, I think, and then that adrenaline rush that kicks in, of like you might get hit and like get hurt. It helps with everything else. Like, you just practice. You get a chance to practice some of the things that you're doing. So,
Question for you: if you
yeah,
ran a school, would you let white belts or beginners spar?
no.
Okay. I think we talked about this, but yeah.
I don't know if we have, but no. My original school didn't allow that, and I know why. It's because beginners, they don't have any control, like with their punches and their kicks. They might like punch really low, or kick really low, and that's really dangerous with like knees and stuff.
Oh yeah.
If they have no control over that, just like, I mean, with grappling, it's very hard not to like just have them do that right away. But at the same time, do I want kids grappling? Because someone's gonna get hurt, especially people who don't know when to stop.
Yeah. I've been kneed in the head before by white belts in grappling. Like, hey man, this is not striking. You know, like,
Yeah.
you know, like there's a wild elbow or a wild knee, and I mean, in a way, it's part of the training too. You know, like you have to be able to like, but at the same time, it's like maybe they should learn some of the basics before they get into the grappling. You know, because
Right.
we're thinking about long-term cultivation, you know. Yeah, because a lot of these people, they come in like, this one sparring match is life or death. Like, if I don't win this, I suck as a person and I hate myself. So they're trying to win at all costs. But that's that's not what martial arts is about, you know. I remember just recently there's a new guy in our judo class, and my teacher like had to yell at him. It's like, this is not the street. I mean, like, okay, fair enough, you can use this in the street if it happens, you know, God forbid if you have to use this in the street. But he told the guy, like, when we do randori or sparring, this is not the street. We're trying to get better. This is martial arts, you know. Yeah. And I think that's the arts part of it, is that it's cultivation, perfection, like seeking perfection, you know. I guess let's wrap it up. I'm going to end with one thing, and then I guess we can go language corner. Did you have anything you want to end with, or wrap? Any final thoughts?
No. Oh, I do have a question though.
Yeah.
Which versions of like Book of Five Rings and The Art of War do you read? Do you prefer? There's so many variations.
I read this old school. I got this Book of Five Rings from my dad, and it was like, let me see if I can find it. Book of Five Rings, and it was like for business.
I know that one. Yeah.
And it's like a picture of Musashi, like,
Yeah.
and a businessman, a white business, and
Yeah.
I think it was called Book of Five Rings for Executives or something like that, or that might have, or I'm trying to find that's. But anyways, the main thing, I'm not sure. The Art of War, I read that a long time ago. I to be honest, I don't know what translation it was. Yeah. Do you have a preference?
Yeah, actually, I don't know who this person is. I mean, he's a martial artist, but Stephen Kaufman is like the best versions of both books I've had.
Oh, Stephen Kaufman. Let me look him up. Okay.
Stephen.
Oh, with a PH. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Stephen Kaufman.
Yeah.
2 F's.
1 F.
1 F. Kaufman. Stephen Kaufman. Oh yeah, I see it. Musashi's Book of Five Rings, the definitive interpretation of Miyamoto Musashi's classic book of strategy. Okay.
Yeah.
So he gets your endorsement. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are great. I've read them. I've read both of them a couple times, and yeah, those were the best. I actually got my original copy from a student. He gave it to me as a gift.
Did you have time? Did you want to say anything about the Book of Five Rings or the Art of War?
No, other than they're really good reads. I will part one other quote from the Book of Five Rings that I remember really well. It says, "No one is invincible, therefore no one can teach you that which would make you invincible."
Ah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So all those people who tell you how to
No one is
that
invincible.
they can make you into like a superhuman being. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not possible, yeah.
So
But he does
It's not
say
possible.
that he does say like the way you fight what was it, like the way you fight one man is the same you like if you can defeat one man, you can defeat 100. If you practice tirelessly, like the way that you defeat one man is the same way you can defeat 100. I think is what he's trying is the interpretation I got. I think what he was pointing at was like the ceaseless training, and the there's one quote I want to leave with from the Book of Five Rings I remember is that the way you walk down the street is the same way as you walk through a battlefield. Is that you're always
Right.
calm and alert. There's always calmness and alertness, because so it's not, this alertness is not the kind that we think of like completely anxious and paranoid all the time. It's a certain calmness, because it's counterintuitive, but like being calm makes you more perceptive, and also
Right.
better able to react, with presence. Whereas if you're constantly paranoid or anxious, you actually miss a lot of things, or you
Right.
黄雀在后 is like you overfocus 螳螂捕蝉黄雀在后, which is a Chinese saying meaning, you're focused on the mantis, the bird, the small bird is focused on the mantis, but there's a big bird behind you that's going to eat you.
Right.
Yeah. So whereas if you're calm, you could see the bigger picture. Yeah. And cool. I mean, Art of War. One quote that kind of was, that's it's been repeated many times, but like, know your enemy and know yourself. You can't just know your enemy because you'll still get defeated. You can't just know yourself and not know your enemy because you're gonna still get defeated. You have to know both yourself and your enemy in war. And in a way, if you want to get philosophical about this, going back to that one episode where we say you're your own worst enemy.
Yeah.
You gotta know yourself first. Well, you have to know yourself because sometimes you're your own worst enemy. Your mind gets in the way, and then from that, it helps you know others, and and realize that, and this Abraham Lincoln is like, the best way to defeat an enemy is make them your friend,
Right.
which is similar to another art of war saying, which is subdue your enemy without fighting. The highest art of war is to defeat your enemy without fighting, right? Fighting
Yes.
without fighting, yeah. Anyways, last thing I'll end with is the dojo-kun. This is something that I learned as a kid growing up. And then from there, we can end with Language Corner. So I learned in Shotokan Karate as a child, and one thing that we always repeated at the end of class was the dojo-kun, which is like the precepts. And the first one we said was do you guys had that in Hungar or Shoyla or where you like repeat
No.
something at the end? Oh, okay. So this.
Yeah. yeah. We kind of.
Here, I'll say
Yeah.
mine, and then I'd be curious to hear yours. But so the first one we would say is seek perfection of character. Jinkaku
Right.
kansei ni tsumuri koto. So seek perfection of character. So these were written. It may be. I think they're affiliated to Ginshin Funakoshi. Though I think there's some debate about the actual source. But the first thing we say is seek perfection of character, and that's always been. In my mind, I've always seen martial arts, even at a young age, not just as a physical pursuit, but as a pursuit of character. Because that's the first thing that we say. I didn't quite understand it as a kid, but I think I understood it more when I went back into high school. It's like, these punches, these kicks, these katas, what the hell is all this for? Is it just to fight? No, I think it's something deeper. It's perseverance in the face of adversity. You're tired, but you still push through. You're training not just your body, but by training the body, you're also training your spirit, your mind, grit. Yeah. The next thing is called be faithful. The way it's interpreted is, I guess, loyalty. Be faithful, like. One thing that always kept back certain practitioners I saw in Shotokan and other martial arts was that they're always like, well, what happens if the guy throws a kick like this, or he punches you like this, or he grabs you like, these guys, like, so doubtful of the art, right? It's good to be skeptical of, like, okay, it'd be good to, like, experiment, but if you don't even know how to throw a punch, and then you're talking about, but what if the punch comes at, well, first of all, learn how to throw a fucking punch, you know? Be faithful, like, trust the art. Like, trust that this art has been around for hundreds, or is based on art from thousands of years, that there's probably, someone's probably thought of that, But, and it's somehow, by training deeply in the art, you should have some faith in that, and also in your teachers. There are some teachers are better than others, but at least get something, take something from it, have some faith in the art that you're practicing. Endeavor, which means effort, dedication, commitment. That ties back to seek perfection of character. In order to reach higher level in the art or any, you have to have to endeavor. You have to put in the effort. Respect others is the next precept. Just etiquette. This is kind of based on Confucian ideals, where you show etiquette to someone higher belt. You say senpai, or if it's a sensei, or if it's like the grandmaster, the shihan. This is something I learned as a kid, like respecting authority, but at the same time, like even people lower than you, like respect to everyone. Because showing respect to others means you show respect to yourself, because you're treating other people the way you want to be treated, is how I interpret it. Yeah. And the last one is refrain from violent behavior, which I mentioned earlier about the Ginshin Funakoshi story. The precept was refrain from violent behavior. To attack the weak is to attack someone weaker than you is a show of weak character or poor character. Going back to seek perfection of character. to engage in violent behavior for the sake of violent behavior shows a certain level of insanity or a level of acting out your own trauma on others. Not cool, you know. They say the sign of someone's character is how they treat someone weaker than them, and I believe that. Like, you're not gonna there's this kid in judo, he's 17, and I throw him around all the time, but I never like try to, but I always make it a learning lesson. Like, once he gets me in something, I'm like, hey, you could do this, shift your weight this way, you could throw me. And he's like, oh, he tries it and he does it. I let him do it,
Yeah.
I don't try to dominate and beat up on him all the time, that's I don't try to be violent towards him because I can. But that's anyways. Any last thoughts on martial arts before we go language corner? Yeah.
Nope.
Okay. My saying is from the Tao Te Ching. It's called 道可道非常道名可名非常名无名天地之师有名万物之母. So 道可道 means basically the way, the Tao, or also known as the way that can be called the way is not the eternal way. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. The Tao, or the way, is nameless, but also named, and is the origin of all things. Is the mother of 10,000 things. But when Chinese they say 10,000, they mean all things. So the way I interpret this and how the Tao is, the Taichi is very heavily influenced by Taoism. But the way I've learned from what I gained from that is like kind of like what you're saying, Dan. Like if you're invincible, like no one's invincible, so no one can teach you to be invincible, right?
Yeah.
No one is the way. No one can teach you all of the way. Because if they could teach you the way of being, of everything, of just the secret of everything, it's not the way. They're not the way.
Yeah.
Someone who says they have all the answers, guess what? I'd be kind of skeptical, like and that's one interpretation, but guess what? It's one of many, and this is what all martial arts, all religions, I dare say, all human experience comes out of. From what I understand of quantum physics, it's like being existence is mostly empty. There's so much space between particles or quarks and like subatomic particles that it's like we're actually mostly empty space in like the size of a particle in relation to each other. However, through the manifestation of this empty space and the interaction of these things, all things are born. From emptiness is something, and from something and in something there's emptiness. And it's something I'm wrapping my head around, but I don't know. It's always given me a sense of peace thinking about these kinds of things,
Right.
Because at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, just it's okay, because in the face of the majestic way, which is everything and is nothing, it's not a big deal. I don't know. That's kind of helped me. Yeah. Did you have anything for Language Corner or?
No, not today.
Okay.
Not today.
Yeah. But I mean, what have you read the Tao Te Ching, or have you any thoughts about the Tao Te Ching? I guess
I've read parts of it. I haven't read the whole thing.
Yeah.
I haven't found a really good translation of it.
Yeah, there's so many.
Like.
It's tough. Like, just looking at the Chinese translation, I found 3 different translations I wanted to share tonight. But like, yeah, it's tough. Yeah. Dao ke Dao, and even Chinese people. I was trying to look up stuff on. Even Chinese people argue about the Chinese translation of the Chinese. Like it's
right.
Yeah. Dao ke Dao, fei cang Dao. Like that basically, literally, he just says, the way is the way, that's the way super the way, like that's like a little translation, but there's anyways. Yeah. All right, good talk, thank you. Let's wrap it up. Thanks, Dan, good catching up, man. Thank you so much. Also remember, listeners, please make sure to subscribe on iTunes. Also, we're on Spotify, Stitcher. We have RSS feed. So if you have any, if you want to subscribe, find us on any of those podcasts players. And also, please be sure to leave a review. That really helps us out. And if you'd like to be a Patreon, we have a Patreon. That'll be in the link in the show notes below. So thank you so much, and bye-bye.
Bye.